Oh god. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am back with a very large book haul. These are seated on the floor next to me, and if I included all the books that are here, they would be as tall as I am seated on the floor. So I'm going to remove that sneak preview. Fall usually marks the end of book sale season here in my area. And so I have a collection of mostly secondhand books from the last library book sale that I went to, along with Marissa of Blatantly Bookish, but also a few books that I bought myself, one completely unintentionally. And second of all, before you ask, and I want to point this out, yes, I am in a Tangled sweater. We have the Rapunzel Sons and Pascal here on the sleeve. And I used to have a friend named Pascal, so that is doubly funny. The first set of books I purchased mainly because I had been to a doctor's appointment that I had been very scared about and had been putting off for far too long. So as a treat to myself for being very brave and facing my fears, I picked up 4 books at a local secondhand bookshop while I was waiting at the pharmacy afterwards. And the first of those I'm very excited about is Camilla by Frances Burney. I read Evelina back in university, but I really haven't read any other of Burney's works since. I have this one and the other novel that she wrote that also begins with a C, Cecilia, I think, on Kindle, but I never remember to read them come Jane Austen July, because I'm not physically seeing them. I always end up reading something else. So now that I have a physical edition, I might actually read it. That bookstore also had a copy of Arthur and George by Julian Barnes. And I think the Arthur in this is Arthur Conan Doyle of Sherlock Holmes. Beyond that, I'm not really sure. Let's double check the back. Okay, yes, it is Arthur Conan Doyle. It doesn't elaborate on who the George is, but he's a lawyer in Birmingham, and they're both brought together by the Great Worley Outrages. And I've never heard of those, so I'm excited to see what this ends up being like. They also had a copy of Oscar Wilde and the Dead Man's Smile by Giles Brandreth. And I read the first in this series. This is not the second, so I do have to hunt down a couple of books before I can read this one. But these are very rare to find here in the US. This is a series of mysteries that Giles Brandreth wrote, in which Oscar Wilde features as the detective, as it were. And the last one I enjoyed. Wasn't my favorite, but it was good, so I'm intrigued to see what the series is like as it goes further into Wilde's life. And lastly, they had a copy of A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. I've heard a lot about Alexis Hall, and I've been meaning to borrow their work through my library, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I'm really thrilled to have a physical copy of this one. As you can tell from the cover, this is a Regency romance featuring a trans heroine, and I am really intrigued to see what that's going to be like. Like I said, I've heard great things about Alexis Hall's work, and I think the bookshop owner said that this had been one of their book club books this past winter, and everybody really, really liked it. So I'm really, really excited to see what I think as well. The premise of this one, I realize I've said very little about premises so far. The premise of this one is that Viola Carroll has been in the Battle of Waterloo as her male self, and is presumed dead. She's missing, presumed dead. So she thinks this is a fantastic opportunity to reinvent herself as her true female self. Then goes back to her hometown and runs into the man that she has always had feelings for, and presumably things unfold from there. I'm really intrigued to see what this is like. Then we get to the 3 books that I recently purchased from Blackwell's. The first are the next 2 volumes of the Forsyte Saga, because I have a bind-up of the original Forsyte Saga that I am extremely slowly working my way through. But I did not realize there were 2 other bind-ups. So there are 9 Foresight novels total. My original bind-up is the first 3, plus I think 2 novellas in between. Volume 2 has the next 3 novels, plus maybe a novella or 2. And then we have Volume 3. Plus, I love these particular editions, looking at the positions of the houses and watching this woman work her way down the street. I think that's such a clever idea. Obviously, I'm still in the middle of novel 1, so I am nowhere near ready to look at the backs to see what happens to these characters in the next several novels, but I'm excited to have them for when I am ready. And this one I didn't mean to purchase for myself. This was supposed to be for my cousin's daughter. So if any of you are watching, please look away now. But for Isla's birthday, we were thinking this would be perfect for her, as she is a dancer and is starting to love historical fiction. But then it showed up, and it was a signed copy. And since I know and appreciate who Anton Dubek is and love a lot of his other work, I thought, I think I'm going to keep this one for myself. So I will order another copy for Isla later on, but I'm keeping this copy for myself. If they both end up being signed, then she will also get a signed copy. This is Codename Foxtrot. You'll know that I love Anton Dubek's historical fiction series for adults. I've read the first 2 books. I've loved him on Strictly Come Dancing for years. This is the first in a middle grade series that he's writing. Also World War II set, featuring a set of twins whose names are Harry and Rosie. And in 1940, they're sent away from their parents to live with their great uncle in the countryside where it will be much safer. And Harry isn't entirely sure how he feels about this. He still dreams of becoming a dancer, maybe dancing at the Blackpool Winter Gardens, but being locked away out in the countryside, that's looking less and less likely. But as they're out there, they're discovering that there could be dirty work afoot, and they need to put their spy skills to the best use to try and help. And it looks absolutely adorable. It is illustrated. I'm going to save this for Christmas because it seems absolutely perfect for winter break. Now we get to the library book sale books, and oh my gosh, did they have a great stash. First of all, I picked up 4 books by E.F. Benson, 4 standalones. I do have a bind-up of some of the earlier Map and Lucia works that I still haven't gotten to, but these are standalones, so I figured these would be safe to pick up. First, I have The Blotting Book, which is a mystery of some sort. Yes, it's a murder mystery, in fact, and a courtroom drama. This comes very highly recommended, and I love the edition, so I'm going to hold on to that. Then we have Secret Lives, which is a novel about an early Edwardian, I'm assuming, neighborhood. That seems to be the era in which E.F. Benson writes, in which everyone wants to put out a very genteel facade, but they're hiding rather scandalous secrets behind them. And apparently E.F. Benson looks at these in a very comic tone. So this sounds lovely. Then I found Paying Guests, which is about a boarding house in a seaside resort and the lives and adventures of the residents of one particular boarding house. And then I picked up As We Are, which is definitely post-World War I. And I'm going to read you part of the back, in that it looks at the effects of the First World War, and these families managed to survive the war across the continent from the safety of their homes. Quote, "But what are they to make of girls who smoke, of ungrateful villagers and shrinking incomes, let alone a daughter-in-law who absconds to Venice with a dubious princess, I'm sorry." And that just sounds delightfully funny and darkly topical, actually, so I can't wait to get to this one either. Then I found Enchanted Glass by Diana Wynne Jones. I loved Howl's Moving Castle to the point where I refused to watch the Studio Ghibli film because I love the book that much. And the aspects that I love about it, I can't see translating well in the context of Japanese culture. So I haven't watched it, but I love the novel. But I haven't read any of her other work. And honestly, I picked this up on a whim. I couldn't even tell you what it's about. It has something to do with an enchanted stained glass window. And I can't wait to see where she takes that. Also in the children's section, I found this, which I didn't know existed, The Girl with the Lost Smile by Miranda Hart. I adore Miranda Hart, and I did not know that she wrote a middle grade novel about a girl who has lost her smile, and she has looked for it everywhere she can possibly think of. She's tried every joke, everything. Nothing works. And so I would assume some pretty fantastical adventures start to happen that might help her figure out what happened to it. The children's section was really on point this year, as I also found the last 3 novels in the Half Magic series by Edward Eager. For about the past year or so, I've been rereading the novels and then continuing with the series where I left off when I was a child. These are the final 3, and I've never read them before, and they're in the same edition that I have the other novels in, and that's just incredible. This follows 2 sets of children who are each connected by a variety of random magical objects. It starts out with an enchanted coin that will grant you wishes, but only half of your wish. So you have to be extremely careful with how you word that wish. And various adventures ensue. And then the next novels build off of that. The Time Garden was about a garden full of the herb thyme that let you travel in time. You can see where this is going. So these are the final 3. I haven't looked at what exactly these are about or which set of children these follow, but I can't wait to find out nonetheless. I've also forgotten which order these go in, so I'm just going to name all 3. We have Magic or Not, which I think might be the last, 7-Day Magic, and The Well-Wishers. He loves a pun, Edward Eager. Also in the children's section, I found The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. I loved the 1960s film when I was growing up, and I know my mother loved it too and read some of the novels, and this one looks like one of the ones that was used as a basis for this film, as I think this one includes the search for the great pink sea snail. And I always loved that section of the adventures. I loved their adventure on the sea. I loved the island where all of the islanders were named after their favorite authors or their parents' favorite authors. I thought that was just so cool. So I'm excited to see what the original characters were like Matthew the Catsmeat Man and Tommy Stubbins, and also see how closely the film linked it to the book. Granted, this is quite old. Its depiction of the native islanders probably has not aged well. I am well aware of that going in, but I'm still excited to see where this goes. Then in other classics, I picked up The Secret City by Hugh Walpole. And I can't figure out if I've heard of Hugh Walpole himself or if Horace Walpole is so familiar to me from history class that I think he sounds familiar. But this was a novel published in 1919, but it's set in 1916, and we follow 2 diplomats who are dispatched to Russia to liaise with, I'm presuming, the government, but also other noblemen. However, it's late 1916. The Russian Revolution was, January of 1917? And so I'm fascinated to see a novel set around that period from a recent perspective. This was only a few years out, so I'm hoping that Hugh Walpole at least knew people who had experienced the revolution from both sides, if he himself did not. So I'm really excited to see what this is about. I also picked up 84 Charing Cross Road because my whole family enjoyed this book, and I did read it, but it was through the library, so now I finally have my own copy. And as you will have seen by this point, I have also read The Duchess of Bloomsbury Street, so now these 2 can keep each other company. I also found a copy of The Communist Manifesto, which I've never actually read. And after having seen The Young Marx, which looks at Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels living in England and their relationship, I'd be really intrigued to read their best known work. I also found this collection of selected poems by Charlotte Smith, who was mentioned in the Rebecca Romney book, Jane Austen's Bookshelf. So I am excited to see what her poetry is like. In a similar vein, I also picked up Women Romantics from 1785 to 1832. This was very clearly someone's college textbook at some point, but it has a variety of pieces of prose. Is it just prose? I think it's just prose. So it's, letters, essays, those sorts of things. From Mary Wollstonecraft, Anna Seward, Catherine Macaulay, Helen Maria Williams, Mary Hayes, Anna Barbauld, Joanna Bailey, Hannah More, Mary Robinson, Frances Burney, Jane Taylor, Dorothy Wordsworth, Mary Lamb, Mary Russell Mitford, Mary Shelley, Claire Claremont, and Frances Trollope, mother of Anthony Trollope. And I'm pleased to say I know a variety of the women mentioned in that index, so I am excited to get to this probably during Jane Austen July. Not quite a classic, but classic adjacent, I found this biography of Thomas Hardy by Claire Tomalin. I love Claire Tomalin. I have so many author biographies at this point. I have this one, and I have Hardy Women by Paula Byrne, which looked at his two wives and female characters. I have Claire Harmon's biography of Charlotte Bronte. I have Claire Tomalin's biography of Dickens. I have so many literary biographies that I keep saying I'm going to read, and then I don't. But I promise I will at some point. Also in literary nonfiction, I picked up Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, which was popular a few years ago, and as the subtitle says, it's the story of Little Women and why it still matters. And that's by Anne Boyd Ryu. I heard really great things at the time, and now that I've read a little bit more of Little Women and revisited why I like it, now I'm in a headspace to see what this book is like. Finally, in classics, I picked up the complete poems of Andrew Marvell, and To His Coy Mistress is a title that stands out to me. I must have read it during one of my classes as a teenager. I also did not know that he tutored a ward of Oliver Cromwell's and that he was a friend of Milton. So now I'm excited to discover more of his poetry. I am disappointed though, because I think the newer edition of this has an introduction by Jonathan Bate, who I really, really like. Sadly though, this does not. So, but it has a great many poems, so I'm excited nonetheless. Then we come to the random assortment of other books. Firstly, I picked up The Play of 1776 by Peter Stone and Sherman Edwards. I have loved this musical ever since I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I still love it. My dream is to have a double bill in New York City where you can see this performed and then go and see Hamilton, because I think both shows illustrate so many different facets of the creation of America. I think that would make such a wonderful pairing. But if you haven't seen this film, because it was filmed, definitely, definitely watch it. It is fascinating and really well done. Plus, thanks to this film, everybody my age knows William Daniels from Boy Meets World. I knew him from playing John Adams here. I also picked up a Barbara Pym novel that I had never heard of before, but I know Jen Campbell and many others are raving about Barbara Pym at the moment. So I picked up this one, which is Crampton Hodnet, and this is looking at the darker secrets lurking within North Oxford suburban houses. And that's pretty much all the back has to say. But I read the first couple pages and the style seemed intriguing as well, so I'm excited. We'll see what we think. Then Marissa has been loving the Brambley Hedge series, and she noticed one in the children's section, so she shoved it into my hands. This is The Secret Staircase. These seem to be a very cozy set of children's books featuring a lot of field mice living in Bramley Hedge and all of the various excitement they get up to, and just beautifully detailed illustrations. They seem very cozy and very cute. In adult novels, I picked up The Sea Queen by Linnea Hartsuiker. This is book 2 in a series. I read The Half-Drowned King in June? I think it was in June. And I have the third book, and I've had it for a while, so I was really pleased to discover that they had the second book. This is a Viking historical fiction series following 2 siblings. And that's pretty much all I can say about that without giving things away about book 1. But it was very intriguing, so I'm excited to see what happens to them both in book 2. I also picked up The Bronte Plot by Catherine Ray, and I read one of hers when I was in university, and I cannot remember which. I quite enjoyed it at the time, but it has been over a decade since, so I hope I still love this one. This one seems to be about a rare bookseller who has made a massive mistake and has hurt her relationship with lots of the people around her. And she ends up taking a trip all around Yorkshire, most notably to Haworth, where the Bronte sisters lived, and rediscovers a lot about herself. There's a potential romance as well. It sounds like my cup of tea, so I hope I still enjoy it the way I did earlier in my life. I also found a copy of Authentically Izzy by Pepper Basham. I read Loyally Luke, which is the 3rd book in this series, or in this world, as an arc back in February, I want to say, January or February, possibly even last year. And I did really enjoy it, and I can get the first 2 through my library, but again, since they're ebooks, I always go to physical books first, so I'm excited to have a physical book. This is a Christian romance series set on a fictional Scottish island. Yes, it is Christian, but I don't find Pepper Basham's writing to be extremely preachy. It's always people in her novels live their faith the way people should live their faith. It's important to them, but it's quiet and it's part of the fabric of everything they do. Then finally, we come to the oversized books, which consist mainly of opera scores. I love finding opera scores at library book sales because they are so much cheaper than buying them outright. So the first one I found was La Sonnambula by Vincenzo Bellini, which is The Sleepwalker. I have no idea what this one is about, but I am going to see it at the Met in a couple of weeks, so I'm excited to have this to study after I have seen it and heard it. I also found L'Elisir d'Amore by Gaetano Donizetti. This one I love. I saw it, a recorded version years and years ago, and I've now seen it live. It's the love potion, the elixir of love, however you choose to translate it. It's a rom-com of an opera, and it's fantastic. I love this one. And I also found an edition of The Magic Flute by Mozart. I've seen it performed for children in English. I've seen it performed in German, the whole thing, as Die Zauberflöte. It's still very strange. It's a very strange fairy tale, but I still really like it. And the music is gorgeous. You can never go wrong with Mozart. Then in random bits and pieces, I also found sheet music for Godspell, which I've loved since I was about 11, so this could be useful for voice lessons if I need ideas of pieces to run. And I also found a copy of Winnie the Witch, which is a British children's book, which I have loved ever since I saw Richard Armitage read one of the Winnie the Witch books. And anytime I see one, I try to collect it. So here we are. So those are all of the books that I picked up this autumn. I am bringing my book buying to a close now until after Christmas because both my birthday and Christmas are coming up, so I don't want to step on people's toes in terms of gifts. So this will be it until January. Let me know down below if you particularly love any of these books or if you are really excited to see my thoughts on them. and I will try to push them up the priority list. I am becoming more of a mood reader though, but still, your opinions are still important to me, so do let me know down below. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.